Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about some anticipated releases for quarter three, and I'm once again doing this a little bit earlier in the month just to give you a little bit of more advance notice, especially for some of these books that come out sort of at the beginning of July. And we're also going to be doing this as a PowerPoint again. This seemed to work really well last time, and I really liked this format, at least for me, in presenting it, so I'm going to keep doing it that way until somebody tells me they hate it. So that's what we're going to be doing, and we'll just go ahead and dive into our presentation, because I have quite a few books to talk about this time. Yeah, there we go. I was like, right slideshow? Yes. So we'll start off with July 10th, where we're getting The Reaper by Jackson P. Brown. I don't know a lot about this one. The description on Goodreads was pretty minimal, but it seems to be some sort of urban fantasy with a murder mystery plot that's following a young woman who is able to sense the auras of supernatural creatures when she meets a man who is about to become a Reaper. He's like coming into his full powers, and they end up teaming up to solve this murder. That's pretty much all I know, but it sounds like it's going to be exactly up my alley, and I'm really looking forward to giving this one a try. Then on July 15th, we're getting The Bewitching by Sylvia Moreno Garcia, which is a multi-generational story about three different women having some sort of encounter with witchcraft. And I believe one of them who's, I think, my understanding is maybe a central character is like a grad student in the 80s or 90s who is looking back at like the journals of her grandmother or something like that, or stories written by her grandmother. That's what I recall from it. I don't know a whole lot beyond that, but I love everything I've read from Sylvia Moreno Garcia, and I actually have an arc for this one that I'm hoping to read before the book comes out. So I'm really excited for this, and I really like Sylvia Moreno Garcia's horror in particular, so I'm excited to see what she's going to do with the sort of like dark academia horror in this one. Then we're getting The Memory of the Ogiesi by Moses Osei Otomi. This is the third and final book in a series of novellas that I really liked the first one. It's a series of novellas. It's interconnected by way of having like a common history. So the second book follows 500 years from the first book, but it's about someone who's interacting in some way with the legend of the character from the first book. And now this third book is about a researcher who is looking into the story of the character in the second book, and it takes place 1,000 years after the first book and 500 years after the second book. So I'm really interested to see what the author is going to do with that particular premise, because I really loved the first book in this series, and I liked the way that it was about like stories and power. So I'm curious to see how that thread is going to like pull through the rest of the series. Then we've got The Jessed Crown by Sarah Hashem, which I've heard good things about the first book in the series, The Jessed Heir. I don't know anything about this beyond that. I just know that I heard some good buzz for it when it first came out. And finally, on that day, we're getting Killer on the Road and The Babysitter Lives by Stephen Graham Jones in a bind-up. I haven't read Killer on the Road yet, but The Babysitter Lives I thought was fantastic. It was Audible only for a little while, so I did listen to it as an audiobook, but I thought it was really creepy. It was one of the few that I've listened to or read that I felt like I couldn't control my facial expressions while I was listening to it. So I was like listening to it at work and I kept like grimacing throughout. So I was really impressed with how creepy that one was. And Killer on the Road is about a family or group of people, mixture of family members and friends, who are going on a road trip that's really an intervention for one of their family members. And the group finds themselves being pursued by a serial killer while they're on this trip. And I just think that sounds really fun. And I'm really excited to give that one a try. And I already know I love The Babysitter Lives. So I think it's going to be a really good bind up. Then on July 22nd, we're getting The Library at Hellebore by Cassandra Khaw. This one's a dark academia story about an academy for the like world enders of various mythologies, but on graduation day the faculty starts consuming the students, and so the students are trying to figure out like how to survive and how to actually like get out of the facility. It sounds a little bit like there's some commonalities with the Golden Enclave series by Naomi Novik. I can't think of the name of the first book, but it's whatever that series is. It sounds like some slightly similar, but I've really liked previous works by Cassandra Khaw. I think I fall on a sort of unpopular opinion on that. I liked both Nothing But Black and Teeth and The Salt Grows Heavy, but I'm really interested to see what they're going to do with this premise. Then we have Red Rabbit Ghost by Jen Julian, which is a small town horror about a guy returning back to his small hometown to look into the mysterious death of his mother. And I believe he starts teaming up with a woman who's like the daughter of a local pork farmer, the guy who raises pigs for butcher. So I'm really curious to see where this is going to go, because I don't really have a sense of what the story is exactly, but I love a good small town horror, so I want to give this one a try. Then we have Blood Slaves by Marcus Redmond, and I feel like we're getting a lot of really good vampire stories this year, but this one is about a group of slaves who become vampires or have a vampire leader of some kind, and they start a revolt in the time directly preceding the Civil War. It sounds really interesting, and like I said, it seems like we're getting a lot of good vampire stories this year. They're using vampirism as a way of exploring like race and power and oppression. And then we have Mayra by Nikki Gonzalez, which is the last book we're getting on July 22nd. This one is about a woman who reconnects with a friend that she used to be really, really obsessed with. They have kind of this unhealthy friendship, but she ends up reconnecting with her and going to visit her at this like creepy house in Florida. And it turns out that the friend's boyfriend is there, and the three of them have this like weird relationship unraveling while the house also seems to be shifting around them. It sounds like it's going to be really creepy, and I'm unclear on, again, what exactly the story is, but I'm excited to give this one a try as well, just because it sounds like it's going to be really atmospheric and unsettling. Then on August 12th, we're getting Lucky Day by Chuck Tingle. I'm really excited for this. I recently read Bury Your Gaze and absolutely loved it. It was a fantastic horror book, and this one seems to be a horror book that's playing with the idea of probability. There's something called the low probability event, where like a bunch of really improbable stuff happened. Improbable, I should say, and a ton of people died, and so now there's a agent who is teaming up with somebody who's like a researcher on probability and mathematics, and they're trying to figure out like what's going on and avert another potential like low probability event. So I think that sounds really fun and kind of mind-bending, and like I said, I really liked Bury Your Gaze, so I feel like I'm gonna enjoy whatever Chuck Tingle is doing in this one. And then we're also getting Too Old for This by Samantha Downing, which is a story about a retired serial killer who has an investigative journalist come to her door, and she's like, well, what's another murder? So I'm curious about that. That sounds fun. That sounds like it's going to be a fun thriller. Then on the 19th, we're getting The Possession of Alba Diaz by Isabel Cañas. This one's about a young woman who she and her fiance's family flee to a mine during a plague, but then she gets possessed. And it sounds like there's probably going to be a romance with her fiance's cousin and her, but I don't know much beyond that. I do know I've read The House something. I can't remember the name of her first book. I've read the author's first book, and I haven't read The Vampires of El Norte yet, but I really liked the atmosphere of the first book. I thought that hitting all the buttons. I thought that some of the characters and plot elements didn't really quite work, but I really liked the atmosphere and the writing, so I'm excited to give this author another chance, and I do still want to read The Vampires of El Norte. And then we're also getting, as you saw a second ago, Five Found Dead by Solari Gentile, which seems to be about I think it's a brother-sister duo who go on a train, and it ends up being like a murder mystery. There's kind of an Agatha Christie-esque murder mystery happening, and they're trying to survive as 5 people are found dead, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. I believe one of them is also a mystery writer. Then on the 26th, we're getting Calabasas by R.F. Kuang, which I'm very excited for. I already have my pre-order in for this. The premise of this just sounds like it's going to be right up my alley, and I really enjoyed Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. So this one is about 2 academic rivals who team up to go to hell to like rescue their mentor. That's all I know, and that's all I need to know to be excited for this one. Like, academic rivals and a journey into hell already had me convinced I was going to love it, so I'm really looking forward to this one. Then we're also getting House of Dusk by Deva Fagan, which is some sort of epic romantasy featuring a fire-wielding nun and a spy. That sounds really fun. It also sounds like it's going to be sapphic, and I know I've been trying to read more sapphic books because that's kind of a gap in my own reading, but this one just sounds like it's going to be really interesting and really fun, so I want to give it a try as well. Then on September 2nd, we're getting Wild for Austen by Devaney Lucer, which is a book re-examining Jane Austen's work and trying to make the argument that she was less conservative, I guess, than we typically like read her as, that she was more wild and rebellious in a lot of ways, and is also, I think, looking at her legacy across time, the ways that people have thought about Jane Austen across time. So that appeals to me specifically because I'm a big Jane Austen fan and also a former English major. So I'm really interested to give this one a try just because I'd love to read more about Jane Austen, as well as I need to read more of Jane Austen because I have a few more of her novels left to read. But this just really appeals to me from that perspective. Then on the 11th, we're getting Cleopatra by Sara Al-Arifi, which is a historical reimagining of the life of Cleopatra, and it sounds like it begins from the time when she actually becomes pharaoh. So no other information really available about that one that I've found, but it sounds intriguing, and also I really like this cover art for this book. On the 23rd, we're getting Spread Me by Sarah Gailey, which is, I believe, it's a horror novel about a group of scientists at a research post who find some sort of specimen that's attacking them or possessing them or, infecting them or something along those lines. Another one where I just don't know a lot about the plot, but I have read other books from Sarah Gailey and enjoyed them. In particular, I really liked, is it Just Like Home, I believe? I really enjoyed that one, and it had some really good horror elements in it, so I'm really hopeful that this one's going to have some strong horror as well. It sounds like it's going to have a lot of body horror. Then we're also getting 640 to Montreal by Ava Jersic. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that name correctly, but this one is about a woman who goes on a 6-hour train trip to try and get some time in to write because she's a writer, but during that train trip, they end up being stranded. I think the train gets stuck on the tracks, and somebody else in the cabin turns up dead, and then they're fighting some sort of, it says unseen, unknown enemy. So I'm not sure what exactly that's going to mean or what that's about, if it's going to be a mystery thriller, or if it's going to lean in more of a fantasy or sci-fi direction or horror direction. I really don't know, but I am intrigued. And then finally we're getting The Killer Question by Janice Hallett. This is another one I have an arc for, and I could not be more excited to read this one. I love everything by Janice Hallett, so I'm really excited for her new book coming out. This one is all about weird events surrounding a pub quiz. And it's various different weird things happen. A body turns up, a weird mystery team shows up, and also the people that run the pub quiz have some sort of dark past. And all of that happens, and then sometime later, the son of that couple that ran the pub is coming back to re-examine the events surrounding the pubs, kind of suddenly being shut down, even though it was a popular location for this pub quiz. So sounds really fun, and again, I just love everything by Janice Hallett, so looking forward to it. Finally, on September 30th, we're getting Crossroad of Ravens, which is the 7th book, some number of books into the Witcher series. That's all I really know about this. I haven't read the Witcher series, but I am a big fan of the game series, so I just wanted to mention this for anyone who is a Witcher fan. And we're getting Fate's Bane as well by C.L. Clarke, which is some sort of epic fantasy that is described as a tragic sapphic adventure. And that's all I really know, but the cover is really cool, and I know a lot of people really liked C.L. Clarke's first series. My best friend did not like it that well. She read the first book and then never went on to read the rest. I'm going to read it at some point. I do have The Unbroken on my shelf, but Fate's Bane sounded interesting, and I think it sounds almost kind of Celtic inspired, so I'm curious to see what direction that's going to take. And then finally, very last book we have to talk about is What Stalks the Deep by T. Kingfisher. I'm excited for this one. This is the 3rd book in the Sworn Soldier series, and it's following Alex Easton, who is a soldier from a fictional country in Europe. And in this particular installment, they are traveling to America to look for their friend Dr. Denton's missing family member, who has gone missing in a haunted coal mine in West Virginia. I'm excited. That sounds really fun to me, and I really enjoyed the first 2 books in this series. So yeah, should be a good time, and also I'm just a T. Kingfisher fan. This is really a quarter that's great for me because there's lots of books coming out from some of my favorite authors. So I feel like I'm winning this quarter. So yeah, those are all the books that I'm aware of that are coming out in the next quarter. Let me know down in the comments below if there's anything you're particularly excited for, and especially if there's something I didn't have on my list that you think should be on my radar. Always looking to find out about new books that are coming out. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have here today, so I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you have, I hope you consider giving it a like, maybe even subscribing so it comes next. Currently posting on Tuesdays and Saturdays, and hope to see you in the next video. Bye.